All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Koyomimonogatari, episode 4.
We got Hachikuji last episode.
Hachikuji.
And it was wonderful.
It was so good. It was
a long time.
It was a pleasure to be reminded why I originally called her best girl.
Yeah.
And now she's she was best girl because,
But I'm still wearing this shirt because I'm holding out. There's a possibility that, much like Hanakawa, even though it makes a lot more sense for it to be Hanakawa because she's the one who knows so much, that maybe on Araragi's journey with probably Suruga this episode, there's a possibility that Hachikuji will also grant some insight.
Ah, I can see that. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We can hope.
We can hope, yeah. But y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, we're going to be starting the episode in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. It's time for a sports anime session.
I wonder which character this is going to cover. I just don't know. Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be Gain.
Oh,
because
I thought it was Yotsuki.
She's going to show up at the school and be like, how do you do, fellow kids, you know? You know, if you were to assign vectors connecting, the three of them, they might make a polygon of sorts.
Ah.
In a lot of ways, thinking about all the characters in Monogatari, I think Suruga is the one that probably grew on me the most, actually.
You didn't just instantly fall in love with her when you saw her?
No. I mean, I did love her, initially, as well. In fact, I remember saying, she was, my dark horse best girl.
Oh, yeah?
But, considering how much more we've gotten with her since then...
Yeah, we have.
She's pretty top tier.
Yeah. Getting scissored by Senjigahara. If only.
My body is ready. Damn it, Suruga. Put your clothes back on. Okay.
Month of books.
So we get some yaoi. Cleaning time? Oh my god. Successful. Oh my god. Yes. That's
How
different.
much you want to bet that Suruga would absolutely be the type of person to wrap herself up in a ribbon?
Yes.
Actually, wait, has she done that before?
Oh my god. Do you want your dinner, your bed, or me?
Yeah. That water looks good.
Uh-huh. Oh, why not, buddy?
He specifically locked her out.
Yep, that's why, yep.
He put the...
Ugh. Oh, wow.
No, it was protective measures.
Well, not necessarily. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Just wait till Nisei.
Yep, exactly.
Oh.
Not at all. Oh. She rarely brings up her father anymore.
Yeah.
Right. All the clothes on the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reflection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Aren't you the caring role model? Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Huh.
Me, or perhaps me?
Hmm. Huh?
There was a time when you were like that?
Wow. Yeah, just a little bit. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh. Yeah.
Ah,
Right.
gotcha.
Oh, that's... Yeah.
And then he's thinking, oh yeah, maybe, right.
Yikes. The call terminated, and call coming immediately. Oh my god, keep going. Yeah, I saw that coming. Oh,
That was great.
This was a really good one. Like
It was.
Like-
Yeah, I think this was my favorite one so far.
yeah, because the Senjugahara stuff was incredible.
Oh yeah.
But I
yeah.
really liked what they were talking about, what Senjugahara brought up with the idea of the memory being an acausal relationship with something you
Yeah.
encountered in the present. So you basically have the self-awareness to realize that your memories are very mutable. They have the ability to be changed
Right.
quite a
Yep.
bit. So in this case here, we have some kind of encounter that there's all this extra emotion and tension surrounding where you're like, ooh, I kind of want this to be important. So then you remember a thing in your past and you subconsciously attribute it to the present. And you go, it was all supposed to go this way. It's quite
Right.
fascinating because there's some definite applications I could see with Araragi's story a little bit.
Yeah, this one felt a lot more like directly tied to Araragi's story than the other ones. Like the previous one with the suicide stuff, that was definitely tied to it as well. But I don't know. Like whenever I think about someone that's going through a rough place, looking at their own reflection seems like something that would bring a lot of that stuff out.
Good old Kohai
Yep.
Tsuruga.
Uh-huh.
She's a very unique character, and I love her Genki vibes and energy, and then her blatant, very overt, just toying with Araragi.
Oh yeah, and
It's wonderful.
I love that he straight up not just locked the door, but put like not the deadbolt, but I forget what that is, like the crossbeam or whatever,
Yes.
like in the doors because
she's strong, like
Right.
Who knows what she's capable
and
of?
he knew that she was gonna try and come in, and then she's all like, "Oh, what? You're locked. You've been imprisoned or whatever."
Yeah, I actually got that little bit of the vibe of where, on some level, she's always kind of poking, fun at specific things there. But there is something to be said that was quite interesting about that. It took a long time for Araragi to actually physically respond.
Oh.
And I didn't necessarily think this is what was going on, but there's instances that I've been in where I'm with a person and they're, just engaging with me or having a good time. Then we separate for a little bit, and then they go into some area where it makes sense for them to lock the door. But then I go and I knock on the door, knock on the door, knock on the door, and after about the third time, if I don't hear a response, I start to freak out a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's like, wait, one, why is the door being locked? Two, what are you doing in such that you would lock the door and not respond?
Right.
Like that was something that I feel like
you start to get concerned about.
Exactly. But this was one of those things where it was like, okay, I don't think they're actually going there, but I think it is interesting that this was something that happened. And yet when we see Tsuruga being like, oh, you responded, yeah. She says something
like, I'll get the stuff that the riot police, use and all that.
Well, she says, are you all right, Araragi? I'll come save you.
Yeah.
Come out with your hands up. That's in order. And then she starts making all these
I'm the
jokes
sex slave,
and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he finally says, stop it. Don't go bringing those things you don't know the name of. And she says, oh, Araragi, so you're safe.
Right.
Like, it's just played for fun enough to where I don't think that that's necessarily something that they're supposed to draw, like, hard focus to, but it was something where I was like, oh.
Well,
okay.
And it's something where Tsuruga is aware enough of Araragi and where the kind of stuff that he's dealt with and a bit of where he is emotionally, that she does get worried when this happens. And
right, and I think that's just natural, even if Araragi wasn't in that state, but it's something that she very quickly came to also as well.
Right, yeah. And then, of course, there's also just the metaphorical representation that Araragi is constantly locking people out, of his life and what he's going through and things like that because he doesn't take care of himself.
When he's naked and vulnerable.
Well, right. Yeah.
Who knows what she was wanting to do with him? I mean, just earlier he was like, well, "What are you planning to do to me?" But he sees himself all tied up.
But that's right. But that is potentially another aspect to it too, in that he is in a vulnerable place, and he doesn't want anyone to be around when he is in his vulnerable place.
Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of things in this episode that felt very revealing regarding Araragi, and just kind of reminding us of where he was at this point in time, because he's riding the high a little bit, like in an awesome way, in that he's in a relationship with Senjugahara, and she's kind of interesting at this point in how she plays with him and banters and stuff. So they're having fun with that, and there's some good flirting that was really fun to experience.
She'd never kidnap me.
What? Yeah. Tie me up, make me a prisoner? No. That doesn't seem like her. I also love the idea that during this whole thing where they're having these conversations and stuff, it's the thing of, well, okay, we're gonna have a nice little display of them, either stretching or disrobing or something.
Yeah, it's yoga or whatever. Yeah,
right. But the transitions for some of them were quite funny. They were quite funny.
And I gotta say, they're like the animation when Tsuruga takes the one of her tights off, that was just really well done.
Yeah.
But also the fact that when she's disrobing and it's like layers are coming off and everything, and then when it gets to her bra, she's like having trouble taking it off, which doesn't seem like she would have much trouble with it because that'd be something that she would be used to doing, right? But then as soon as the camera gets to the point where her boobs aren't actually in the shot anymore,
instantly takes it off.
Then she takes it off.
She's being considerate.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Being considerate,
that little bit of meta aspects.
What do you mean? These are only for Araragi's eyes. Araragi senpai's eyes.
Oh man. This episode, this really was my favorite episode of all the Koyomi episodes so far, because I feel like it really, in some of the similar ways of why I enjoyed Nisei so much, it felt like there was just a focus on the characters having their banter. Like there was that little bit of the reflection and stuff, but even then I felt like that was fairly minor as far as how much of the episode it took up,
Yeah, I definitely felt that as well.
And it was just the characters hanging out and shooting shit, and it was awesome. Whether it's Araragi and Tsuruga doing their whole thing, or Senjugahara saying hold on, you were at Tsuruga's house? Hold on, what's up?
What were you doing there?
Yeah. You took a bath?
How long were you in that room? Yeah. Wow, what a great role model you are.
Yeah, exactly.
The ways in which she teases him is quite fun. I also love the way that Araragi's having his kind of protest with regards to the way things are, and he's like, oh, Senjugahara, you're too soft. Tell me to die a little bit more than that.
Well, and also there's the whole thing of the previous episode was directly talking about suicide and stuff. And then Araragi says, "Life's too precious to die right now. I only just became your boyfriend."
Well, yeah, it seems like it's a constant theming throughout this section. There's definitely some alluding to the concept of not only death but suicide potentially as well.
And like it was definitely part of the banter, but like
it's definitely
topical nature of the banter stood out to me.
Yeah. I loved the idea. Let's get into this whole thing of Senjugahara's pretty intelligent, I would say, interpretation of events. It doesn't have to be the actual correct interpretation of events, but the idea that, when we look at ourselves, when we look at our reflection, sometimes we see something that we want to see, and sometimes we see something that we don't want to see.
Yep.
And when we encounter another person that we resonate and connect with strongly, a lot of times we end up very quickly seeing parts of ourselves in that person.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily something that we're trying to imprint onto them. It's just, it's easier to recognize things that are familiar to you than things that aren't. So in that case here, the idea that, upon seeing your reflection in the water and maybe being a little bit of a more superstitious kind of culture or what have you, and then seeing a person that might have some actual physical features that are connected to you, you're like, wait, I feel like I've seen this face before. Where lovers crossed across time and space, and all that.
Right.
That's a nice, little romantic thing to it, and it very much feels like something that Suruga would think up in a lot of ways,
or potentially her family, if it's like her family, this is where she gets it from.
Right, exactly. Yep. But the idea that, no, what if it's acausal and that image was applied to the memory upon meeting Toei Gain? Or
Gain Toei,
Gain
because
Toei.
In a lot of ways, like that's what connection with people is usually, is you find some sort of common ground, some way that you can see some of yourself in them, and that way you can hopefully understand them a bit better, because what do we have other than ourselves as perspectives and measuring tools for everything else?
Sure.
Right?
And in a really cool way, one of the things that I would say keeps a lot of the ego out of it is realizing how little of you is unique. Right. And it's just a thing of where it's just that bit is the translation tool you use to understand and connect with that person.
Exactly.
And then when you find that it doesn't work in some area, you ask questions, you connect more, you engage, you show a little bit of vulnerability, and the relationship slowly builds.
Right.
And so this is a really cool little measure of that in this episode.
Well, and because in Araragi's case, his internal state hasn't necessarily been the healthiest, right? How does he then relate to other people?
In Bake here.
Well, right. Yeah, because this is way earlier on in his journey and everything. And the idea of seeing what you like or not, there's the literal aspects of that of do I like the way my face looks today? Sure. And then it's when I think about myself, what comes to mind? Is it positive or negative? Right?
Yeah, I think that the idea also of having, when you look at yourself, you get a kind of an instant reaction, is something that's rather interesting, because I would say the closer to it being an instant reaction, the closer I would say you'd have to disassociate from it if it was something that was negative. Meaning that if it's more of a, like, I don't like that, like it kind of makes me revolt a little bit inside, I could see that being the whole thing of where Senjugahara brought up the idea of kind of the whole bit of gender or what have you, or see it, that could be really fluid. And then Aragi's like, there's not as much differences when you're younger and stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, are they drawing a little bit of a connection to Ogi here? Because there's very much an aspect of Ogi being, not only connected to Araragi, but kind of being a weird shadow sort of reflection kind of aspect.
The nega internal state, Araragi, or whatever.
Exactly. That alternate version in a way.
Yep.
And like, there's definitely something that I feel like that was going in that direction, and it kind of fits the bill as just being another, like, hey, here's another drop in the bucket to show that there is a connection there is some kind of relationship going on there that is more than just it being a I don't know, just an oddity, if you will, or some
Right.
kind of thing like that. Yeah.
Especially considering that within the narrative, right? Before this, we had Owari. Cool. Awesome.
Yep.
Great. Good stuff. The first half of Owari, Ogi was rather prominent.
Yep.
And Ogi did a lot of things, and the interactions with Araragi was a bit more extreme than anything we'd seen thus far.
Right, with the whole locked in the room and
Yep,
everything.
exactly. And the whole thing with Ogi and Araragi and Hanakawa and all that stuff, right? Really, really good. Ogi has also been said to be the big bad of this series.
The actual final
Right,
boss.
the actual final boss.
Right.
And what is the point of Koyomi within the grand narrative? It's a look back in the past, but the sort of the best place in my mind to do that would be right before you get to the big crescendo,
Right.
as sort of like this is how far Araragi has come as a person, these sort of stakes, and everything and all that stuff. And then now we go into the grand finale, right? So having something like this here, where it's like, oh yeah, that subtle, cleverly disguised, good excuse for giving a little nod to the character that has been said to be the big bad of the show.
For sure. And, like, it kind of fits that this would be another thing that would just get brought up if he's going through a little bit of a memory lane trip, through memory lane. If he's, he's thinking back on specific things, and, like, this is something where he's either thinking about this himself, sharing this story with someone else, or sharing this with someone else being Ogi, in some level, where it's like, how much is that actually him sharing versus like also kind of going through the memory lane trip? And this is some area where it's like, if memories specifically can have a little bit of coloring of things over them based on, things that happened in the present, meaning there's an acausal relationship there. What if that's also another reason why this stuff is getting brought up? Is that he's actually going back now and getting the accurate interpretation and perception of events. So it's like he's stilling the waters and going, okay, what actually happened? But not only that, how do I feel maybe in the present about the things that happened? And then what we're doing also in the narrative sense is going linearly from the beginning of the earliest memory that he wanted to bring up in this whole thing to some kind of point closer to the present.
Right.
And what's that point? Like, what's that? Where does this end? Because there's some interesting implications I could see about where it would actually end. Meaning Koyomi specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I am a little bit curious about. Well, okay. So also the whole reflection thing. A reflection is, you see yourself, right? And the idea that the person saw the person they were fated to be with, that also seems like it might be something of, hey, Araragi learned to love you, right? Because you are what you see in the water, your reflection.
And you are stuck with yourself.
And you are stuck with yourself, right?
That's true.
So make it a good relationship with you, Yep. Which then ties into the whole Ogi thing potentially with her being the reflection. But one of the other things...
keep going. Keep going. I'll save it. I've got it.
One of the other things that I've been thinking about with Koyomi as a chunk of the story, there's 12 episodes. There aren't 12 Monogatari girls. How's this going to go? And
wait a minute.
And while it's definitely possible to have it be something where it's like, okay, going through like specific like arcs and sections of the story, like there aren't 12 girls.
Yeah, there's definitely not.
Are we just going to double up on some of them, which I'm totally fine with,
And some of them don't even make sense to bring up at this point because they are before.
Right, like Oikura, it doesn't really make sense to have Oikura be in there.
No.
But then another thing, if Oikura, which doesn't really make as much sense to have be in here, but it totally could be, then the last one that would be brought up, assuming that it goes through linearly and doesn't backtrack on any of them or whatever, the last one would be Ogi. which could potentially tie into the whole idea that this whole thing is also something that Ogi is causing Araragi to sort of go back through.
Right.
You know.
And I'm still keeping my thing in check here because you said something that was rather, I would say, leading to a kind of a wholesome conclusion about this episode.
Yeah.
But to bring up the Ogi thing specifically, Ogi's role, if anything, does seem to be something that is, for the most part, actually helping Araragi look at things internally.
Right.
And go, hey, I know this is painful and awkward to bring up, but you should take a look at this.
Right. It's a symptom of a problem.
Right. It's kind of like the equivalent of if you see a car from the outside, it can be shiny, painted, glistening, and wonderful. But internally, there might be a few loose things and what have you that are not necessarily up to snuff.
Or something. Yeah.
Now, those things aren't going to cause an outward issue immediately. But if left alone long enough, they will eventually lead to bigger and bigger problems. I feel like that's kind of what Ogi is that it's like, hey, this has been left alone for a while. Poke. So get looking at that.
Araragi, you're sick. Yeah.
Or just at the very least, Araragi, maybe you could be doing things a little bit better. So it's not even just that it's a horrible problem. It's like, oh, here's some little stuff that you might not see as like a big deal.
Right.
Should probably be looked at.
And the fact that also that Ogi only showed up like not at the beginning of the series makes me think that sort of reinforces that idea of, it's something that's not being addressed. It really needs to be addressed. And as a result of that, it turns into something else that is a forcing function so that you've got to address this stuff.
Sure.
But what was the thing that you were talking about?
The wholesome thing is why this episode ended with Suruga talking about looking at her boobs and her abs. Because the reason why is that if you look at your reflection and you are disappointed, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
You should look at yourself and be happy you've got boobs, abs, and everything.
Right. Even if you don't necessarily have the bod of Suruga, because that is totally understandable.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And of course Suruga in her
she gets her blood running just thinking about her own body, which is like, all right, Suruga, there's a limit of information I'd like to know.
Good. Yeah.
But I will say that there is something really wholesome about that. Like if you think about it, Araragi's got a lot of things going for him. He has a lot of things not only to be thankful and grateful for, but to be proud of. Like, and that's something that might be like where this is also kind of combined with the idea of if he's looking at the past and going, I could have done that a little bit better. I need to address that. That's a little bit more negative thinking. There's also a way of looking back at the past and looking at all these characters and these relationships and going, I am so grateful for all these people I got to know. I can look at my reflection, at my past, at my experiences and stuff and go, oh my God, I got to know Senjugahara.
Yeah, I like me.
I like these people. I like the relationships that I have. Yeah, I miss Hachikuji. Yeah, I miss, kind of the way things were in high school or something like that. Because if we think about this story as being like kind of non-linear, already kind of over or something like that.
He's the end of his childhood essentially as he becomes, an adult on his own.
There's
or whatever.
nostalgia attached to it.
Sure. Yeah.
Like remember when we did like little oddity, mini episodes
Why
and
else
stuff?
would you write a story about it?
Yeah. I think that there's something rather wholesome to this episode that like needed to be said in that regard. So
it's good stuff.
Yeah. But
and it was just fun.
It was fun.
It had really fun.
It had some really cool things that I think were hinting at stuff for the future. A lot of cool stuff for past Araragi to kind of stew on and think about. But then also just some good fun. But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there, and any level of support gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us and a community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yep, wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines. It's on Amazon. If you're interested, the link's in the description. down below.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.